You're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
I'm going to start this week with a question from listener Andy Aubrey. Hi, Andy. Question for Paul, very specifically. When are you going to bring Only Covvect back?
Today with I've just read someone, I think it's Ted Johnson on Twitter, who's just wrote, "Great, that means I can skip half the pod today." So it's not universally welcomed return, but there are some people who are happy. That
we are quite bad at it, aren't we?
Yeah,
that's one of the issues, I think.
I liked Simon Fahey, friend of the show, Si. Hi, if you're listening. He said, "What's the overall under betting for how many times Paul has to explain the rules?" It's brought back very fond memories. I mean, the people who have spoken, there's been a strange number of people requesting the return of Only Covvect recently, and strange being anything more than one.
It's not strange. It's not strange at all. I think it's just the natural ebb and flow of the way these things work.
But I mean, we've put this in the hands of science. In the form of a poll that I did earlier. Is it time to bring back Only Covvect? 56% said yes, 8% said no, 36% said please God no. I mean, really, any of you that... I can only imagine that's been sabotaged in the way that we sabotage polls to do with James Madison ever.
In the summer I've done a poll today, who should start on Saturday, a jet-lagged Nazon, Mark McNulty or Bevan, and 3 people have voted for Bevan. So, they're the jokers out there.
It was Devon Bevan, Kevin Bevan, and Levin Bevan. Let's do Moments of the Week, shall we? Paul?
I'm going to start off one of my sort of accidental ones, and then I saw a clip that CCFC had put on of Barnett having a shot, and then one of the Cov fans going arse over tit in the stand.
Yeah, he was right by where I was stood. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Was he?
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit of audio on the clip as well, which Charlie pissing himself. So,
that makes the clip. You have to have it. You need the snigger at the end. That's real.
Yeah, good stuff. Annoyingly, I missed it in real time, but the person, Jim, who I was stood next to, yeah, he saw it and informed me. But yeah, we were really close to that. It was a shame that I missed it. Neil, Moment of the Week?
There's been quite a few little things this week. I didn't realise. Usually you get, with boring games, you think, there's nothing to talk about. And I had a little whiz through, and today we've had Nazon's goal, which has been incredible for Japan against Japan. So
Brace.
Made it worthwhile. Very good.
Japan's defending was very Port Vale-esque, wasn't it? Sorry, am I dragging it down? It was like you were watching the Japanese player going, he's going to close him down. He's going to... Oh.
I mean,
even
the keeper. It was... Finish. Ignore the keeper as well. I mean, it lands on the line almost. It's like, how has he lobbed you when you're on the line and it's still hit? Oh, I don't know. But let's forget all that. And Nazon, that's another thing that came through. Did we get some legitimate pronunciation info?
Well, we did, as long as the person that's told us is... informed. I've never seen them before. I've not come clear how they found my constant questions to him in French, in pidgin French, but that he has said Nazo with no N on the end. Did he say?
I mean, the last bit's a bit weird.
Yeah, I couldn't.
I could get the Nazo. That bit kind of makes more sense than us with our Nazon. Daftness.
The funny thing, when I saw his instruction on how to pronounce it, I realised that I'm so settled on Nazon now that it just doesn't matter. That's obviously what I'm going to go for. Unless he gets in touch to say, this is a cease and desist, you have to pronounce it correctly. I'm going with Nazon just forever, I think.
But isn't this the most pointless argument, though?
Why? Why is it pointless, Paul?
We call him the duck.
Oh, true, yeah.
Well, let's
not quibble over the name that we don't call him. Let's just keep calling him the duck, and it just makes life a lot easier all round.
But in line with everything else of your pronunciations, you call him Dublin's Nablon Blad.
I call him Le Duck. And even that's wrong, because it's Dukens, because it's pronounced more of a duke than duck.
I don't even agree on that, I don't think. I think they're all making up. It's just nicknames, isn't it?
And I prefer the duck over the duke. I'll round off moments of the week. I had a real life footballer encounter on Saturday. I went to get the tube from, I think, is it Cannons Park or wherever it is that's closest to Barnet, to trendy Bermondsey. And when I got up to the top of the stairs to get on the tube, Jodie Jones was sat on a bench just at the very top of the stairs. And it took me back, and I didn't realise what I was doing. And I said to him, it didn't help that we met him when we were in VIP and we did that photo, and that felt like it was
only a couple of weeks ago.
But it didn't cross my mind that I thought he'd be like, oh, it's that guy. But he just seemed so familiar that I instinctively just walked up the stairs, saw him, and just went, "You're right, you fucking legend," like that. And then he just stared completely blankly back at me, and I just skulked off.
Did you get any reaction?
No, he just wasn't. He just was like. What? But I think there was quite a lot of Cov fans there. I think a lot of people might have done exactly the same thing because he just looked just very perplexed. And then we spied on him in the carriage next to us eating a reasonably big bag of sweets.
These are the memories you live for, aren't they? I mean, they don't come back.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to live that moment again, do you?
Was it the same sort of look that Corey Adai gave Neil this morning when Neil woke him up, serenading him happy birthday through his open apartment window?
Yeah,
that should have been my moment of the week. Actually, it's his birthday.
Yeah,
not my own birthday, but Corey Adai's birthday. Congratulations to you, Corey.
I much prefer the mental image of Corey Adai appearing at Neil's bedroom window, not on a ladder or anything, to sing him happy birthday, just to peek in like some sort of Gulliver's Travel style situation.
While blowing a dream in through his window.
Yeah.
BFG style.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I feel like normally I would say, enough of this nonsense, let's get on to all the things we've got to talk about with the football. But there aren't any, really. I think it's me that's chivied us along to do a pod this week, but there's not really anything to talk about with the Barnet game, I'm afraid. I can do my best, but that's not going to be even... It's going to be worse than usual, I'd expect. Tremendously boring. To a certain extent, if you like, you can pause this here and just get my view of the Chesterfield game that was really remarkably similar. First 10, 15 minutes or so, I thought that Barnet were ever slightly the better team. They had maybe two reasonably well-worked set-piece routines, the second of which freed up their gargantuan centre-back to get away from McDonald and, in fact, the rest of the pack. And it was a really smart move to turn a crowded box into a free header situation. But the ball sailed over his head, and then they never bothered doing it again and didn't really get any options from set pieces. But in the first 10 minutes you thought, oh, actually, these might present some sort of problem. But then that was the last time they did at all throughout the entire game. The second half especially was really, really remarkable for the lack of attacking intent or threat posed by Barnet. And it didn't seem to be that they had shut up shop in any sense. They kind of ran out of ideas by the looks of it. It was a really... Isn't that because
Barnet's top two goal scorers or their main attacking... It'd be a bit like watching us if you took Jones and the Duck out. From what I understand, they were missing their two main goal threats, which might have possibly stunted them a little bit.
But they just lacked... I thought both teams in the first half were just clueless. There was, in fact, that was going to be my moment of the week. There was one moment in the first half where Burge kicks the ball out and a guy on the centre circle just heads it straight back into his arms. And you kind of thought, yes. how much more of this have we got to watch, really?
That's so sensible soccer, isn't it? It's just boom, boom. Simple.
It was so transactional. It was just one big straight kick through the centre of the field and then just immediately back to him. And he didn't chest it down or he just literally just caught it and then you're like, isn't life too short for this? Yeah, there's not a great deal else to talk about first half wise. The second half we came out, and this I think is something that is in a game lacking in positives. It's something that I think is indicative of our overall season so far. The first 15 minutes or so out of the second half we came out looking like a different team. And there was no particular tactical or personnel switch involved. They just came out with a lot more intent and tenacity. It was Jones's only period of the game where he really made some difference, not necessarily for his own fault. He was double marked and ably so. The players it just didn't quite come off for him for most of the game, but for that first 15 minutes of the second half, he had the odd hit and run where he was able to just burst past people, and he was starting to get into it. And the moments where he's good, he's such a joy to watch. At a small ground like Barnet's as well, it's a really nice view of the game because we felt so on the pitch as opposed to even close to the pitch. Just seeing him at close quarters, he's got a really nice mixture of a lot of different attributes. I know that we've waxed really positive. I don't think that's a thing, is it? But you know what I mean. But he's not tiny, is he? He's quite a significant athlete. He's reasonably tall and he's reasonably taut. He can handle himself physically, can't he? As well as being fast and tricky. He's actually got quite a lot to his overall arsenal, as opposed to being either a one-dimensional, mifsud, tiny, just pace. I know that it's a bit stating the obvious, but in that very brief period, we got to see him very up close, and you just think, you really should win Player of the Season in League Two this season. Really, for the amount of damage he's done so far, it would take a pretty significant drop off for him to not be in the running. But he was given a very, very difficult game by two players that had got him reasonably well managed. The big problem that we had, that was most evident in those most potent 15 minutes, is that the game was then left open to be picked up by players like Biamu and McNulty and Devon Kelly-Evans specifically, and they just perhaps came up short quality-wise. Biamu maybe had 2 or 3 chances. There's a tremendous amount of credit to give to Biamu and to Robbins, I would suggest, because I think his performances of the season have gone up and up and up, and I thought he was fine again on Saturday, in that way that eventually I was like, yeah, Clive Platt's fine. He wasn't a rip-up trees, he wasn't good, but he serves a function now, and I can see what he does, and I think he's trying really hard, and I think they are making him better. I think there's a point at which we might get to later in the season and go, do you know what, you're actually an alright player, if he continues in the way that he has. And I think there's a lot of credit to be given to him.
I think I'm getting there with him.
Yeah, he's not amazing. He should have scored. There was a header that he had in the 6-yard box that he planted straight at the keeper. But I think perhaps it will come, perhaps it won't. I don't think he will get more than 10 goals this season. At this rate, he'd probably be lucky to get 5. But he does serve a function in what we do. But I think possibly more when he has Nazon next to him, or Nazon next to him. Devon Kelly-Evans, it just didn't really work for whatever reason. He just worked hard, but he missed a really glorious chance in that spell in the second half. I assume you've seen, where it looked like he wished the ground, a small divot to form to completely swallow him whole.
Was he playing central? From what I could tell, he was playing central for a lot of the game.
Jones pulled his men so far out wide that it created such a chasm of space for him to drift into that he was able to play really centrally. He was sort of nominally on one side, but had such a massive area to operate in and that was quite good. They did present through them completely putting all their eggs in the get rid of Jones basket. That was where all our chances came from, was the other side, because of the space that we'd got in it.
Was Kelly-Evans playing on the left or the right?
He started, you have to forgive me, he started on one side, and after about 10 minutes they switched over. I think he played most of the game on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Right, coming inside. I know I sound like a stuck record when it comes to McNulty. There's one very, very, very particular, and this is such a nitpicky thing, but then we're a very nitpicky podcast, so deal with it.
Oh, speak for yourself.
There's one moment with McNulty. Actually, let's get the good in first. All of his approach play was really useful, and he did take advantage of the space that was afforded him on that right-hand side and to cut in. And he often found himself driving into the box, and there was a couple of times where it just didn't work. It got away from him, or sort of tackled him, or whatever else. But there's also one very marked moment that I don't know if you've seen in the highlights, where he drives in and gets himself into a really good shooting position, maybe 8 yards away from goal, just to his right of the goal. And he squares it, and the pass goes astray. And you think, and I know this is such a reductive argument to have, but Armstrong never passed there, and Wilson would never have passed there, and Leon Clark would have never have passed there. Even Nazon wouldn't have. I just think, and I know that it's down to presumably a lack of confidence, and that could or might change, but and again, I know it's unfair. You just think, are you really that kind of assassin that you want up front, where you just... Because I'd never mind, even if there had have been someone totally open and he'd have shot there, you'd just go, I want my strikers to shoot there. I want them to have one thing in mind, and that is, when I get into this position, I'm going to shoot no matter what. And he just didn't. And I thought, that's not right. Go on, Paul.
That is the worry, isn't it? If basically McNulty's got one, Dion Kelly-Evans has got one, Vincenzi's got one, Bevan hasn't scored. If you look at we've scored 14 goals. You have to go down to Cambridge, who are 14th in the table, before you get to the next team, or the team who scored the next fewest number of goals. And the other teams in the playoffs are, most of them are around 20 to 23 goals. So some teams are averaging around about 2 goals a game. We're averaging just over 1. And that is the concern about the fact that, as you say, we had the chances against Barnet, or we got in a position to have chances, but we didn't really execute them, or didn't work the keeper. From the highlights I've seen, the keeper seemed to have a lot of shots that were just at him. He didn't make that many wonder saves, and you do get a feeling that the team does still... It just lacks that something else. And when you look at the bench, and it's like, and it's not... This going to sound like a criticism. It's not, because he was the first choice player. I don't think Bevan scored a goal as coming on as a sub since like 2010 or something. And that's mainly because he started, but it also shows that he's not the sort of person who's going to come on and change a game. So you worry that there's just... I mean, what were the sub... A, did he make subs? B, did the subs look like they were actually going to increase our threat level, or were they the usual Cov subs where it's like holding up, sort of change for change's sake? Can I just finish off the point about McNulty first? But what you've raised is a pretty significant thing. So McNulty, the final thing I would say on him is, I do think there would be an interesting partnership to be struck with him behind Nazon, or them two up front together. The thing that I'm most impressed with so far is his work rate and his link play. Not a target man style link play, but I think he looks like a reasonably intelligent player, and I think I like the way that he gets around and buzzes around. Like I'd said before about Cody McDonald, obviously the dream striker for anybody. I think that his unselfishness would benefit Nazon, and I think you'd have potentially... Everyone tells me he'll score 20 goals this season, and I think you might want to give teams something to think about by having 2 goal scorers up front. I just think it might be an interesting thing to have a look at. And then finally, just on the remainder of the team, the defence, Jack Grimmer, I thought, had his best game for us by a country mile. I thought he damaged the game in a way, and I know that we didn't score, but it wasn't for want of his trying. He broke forward, had a decent shot that was straight at the keeper. He was really, really aggressive in the tackle throughout the game. There was one really significant block that he made foul that he made on the halfway line to stop a breakaway. He was all of the things that we've bemoaned him not being so far this season. I thought that was a really big improvement. McDonald and Willis were just McDonald and Willis. That's becoming really, really standard. I thought of the two of them, perhaps Willis was ever so slightly better on Saturday, but that both of them absolutely fine. And I thought Kelly and Doyle both. Doyle perhaps even more so. Again, they are the bedrock. They are why that is now 8
clean sheets in 12. That back 7, which admittedly is a significant number, which gives you a good chance of keeping clean sheets, but that they are now such a fabulous unit. And we've had questions about, would you bring Haynes in if you had the opportunity, and blah-de-blah-de-blah, but I'm not sure you can really change a defensive unit that's so proficient. It's just about trying to get the most out of your attack, I would suggest.
But it throws up the problem, isn't it? It's like, as you say, we do have 7 players whose only mission is to keep clean sheets. And it's a case of, do we really need that many in League 2?
Yeah, well, I get what you're saying. I just think that there is probably a slider that you adjust, and that if you adjust it, let's say that you bring Haynes in for Stokes, we probably create more down the left-hand side, and we probably are more vulnerable down the left-hand side. I don't think it's any more complex a transaction than we would have to give something up to be more attacking, wouldn't we? And it's almost 6 of one, half a dozen the other for me. I kind of think we should be pretty happy about what is an absolutely stunning defensive record.
But also, what's the measure of an attacking unit? So obviously, goals is the ultimate. But if we're talking about style of play and stuff, I mean, all the stats this season suggest that we are throwing a hell of a lot forward in terms of expected goals and all those sort of stats, which I'm already just becoming sort of accustomed with. But it's not like we're not creating anything either.
Yeah, well,
so obviously scoring the goals is the next step, and I think much of that comes down to, like say, confidence in front of goal. I think much of these players will have that requisite ability to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't think in League 2 any of these players will struggle to do that if they have the opportunity. I think it is that balance, and it's just that final step of the process at the moment. I don't think that if we weren't creating anything, so if we were this really rock solid defensive team and then we weren't creating anything going forward, there would be a concern there, because you do wonder if it's sustainable or not. But we are creating loads at the moment. A stunning amount of chances.
Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. If one of the shots that goes straight at the keeper is even centimetres the other way, we just win it 1-0, and I think we still are having this conversation because we're not scoring enough. But I don't think there's a right or a wrong, is there? Go on, Paul.
No, and I think the thing. So I only watched the highlights, and that was enough for me. But again, we seem to have a lot of shots from long range, which is what we seem to do a lot of. Which, whether or not they affect the stats, I don't know. Whether or not it's like break it down, but it's like everyone's. I've seen a lot of things. We've conceded 4 less than Luton. It's like, yeah, but Luton have scored 23 goals. It seems in this mindset, it's like we can't possibly affect the back 7, because if we start conceding, it's like, well, A, we might not start conceding, but B, it's not that conceding goals isn't you can concede goals and still win games.
But you can, as long as you're scoring, and that's where the jeopardy comes in. If we tamper with it and we start conceding more but don't score any more, our grasp of leads is so flimsy that it ends up being a huge risk to take. If we'd won even the occasional game 2-0, then you'd go, yeah, it might be worth it. But at the minute, it's a lot to gamble, isn't it?
But it is, and it'd be interesting to see. Atkinson's going to be an interesting game because they're at the top. It'd be interesting to see against Colchester and Forest Green, because they're 2 of the sides who I'm assuming are going to come to the Rico and completely shut up shop. And we've seen quite a few times this season, if we play teams who shut up shop, we struggle to break them down. We'll always have chances, because that's just the nature of the league we play in, and also the players we have. But for me, I just seem like we're completely reticent to do anything other than just keep this defensive line. That's fine. Defense, I'm not bemoaning the fact we've kept 8 clean sheets at all, but it just seems like, we can't affect that because we'll suddenly start losing. And it's like, well, the teams around us have all conceded more than us, and they've got the same amount of points. So there is.
But where do the goals are coming from? the attacking portion, aren't they? I mean, it's the strikers. The chances are they're the ones who are having the shot. So I don't see why you would need to change anything that's going on in that defence.
Yeah.
Are you saying that an extra midfielder or something would make score more goals?
Well, I don't know enough about the other teams we play against, so it's really hard for me to comment. However, we play with 7 defensive, a goalkeeper and 6 players who are defensive. That's their main thing. So they are very defensive players. We play with 2 very defensive midfielders, and we've seen this season a couple of times where we play against teams who sit a bit deep. That midfield those 2 can't impact on the game. They don't affect the game. They affect the game when it's open. And it's really hard because it's like, I'm not saying that they're bad players. They're not. What they do is they give us a very good defensive screen, which is brilliant, which is mean we're keeping these clean sheets. But it gets to the point where, is there something else we can do to make us a bit more offensive? Because we literally only attack with 4 players. But one of them didn't.
We're the most defensive team in the league, Paul.
Yeah,
we are. We create more chances. So the issue is we're not finishing the chances, and they are chances. They're expected goal chances. They're not just shots from outside the edge of the box. They are genuine chances. Biamu having a header from 6 yards out and not putting it in the net. We're getting to that point.
Yeah.
So all I can go off is what I've seen, and.
What, the last game though? Are you talking the concerted season, or are we?
There's been over the. If I look over the season, I don't think we create that many decent chances per game, and I think we're in League 2, so I don't expect our strikers to be 1 in 1 chance finishers. Unfortunately, they don't appear to be 1 in 3 or 4 chance finishers. So, is there some? It might just click. It might. It might, and I might be completely wrong. I watched the game against Crewe, and for 60 minutes, we just didn't know how to break Crewe down. And we scored when we were brilliant for 10 minutes, when Crewe were completely all over the shop. But I've seen quite a few games this season where it's like, I just at times, it's great. We might win enough games this season, 1-0, and that'll be fine. It won't be an issue. I just worry that we don't have a plan B. And I look at the strikers we've got, and they're not scoring goals. Now, is that because they're bad players? Is that because they're just not confident? I don't know.
Let me pick it up from here then, because that plan B is a particularly astute thing. So, the big thing that happened after maybe 65 minutes from the stands was everyone was shouting, make subs Robbins, change it up, blah, 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 all that stuff. But look at the bench I'm going to get it up now. If you look at the bench on Saturday, there isn't an immediately obvious thing to do. I agree with you in principle. I think that there is a consideration. The problem that we've got is, when we're talking about it being a slider of risk and reward and defence and attack, you probably would nudge it up a little bit because we've been so resolute at the back. You can probably afford to give some up again. But on the bench on Saturday, we had Vincenti, Tom Davis, Leon O'Brien, Stuart Bevan, Jordan Shipley, Stevenson and Ponticelli. That doesn't scream wealth of attacking options to me. And in the end, Jordan Shipley came on 77 minutes, and the only thing I could say for him is he immediately took all of the corners without anybody. It was, I'm the guy that takes the corners, and you could see why, because he was great. The first one was awful, but then after that, I think he took another 3 that were all very good, right into the back post, curled round, but that he wasn't, he was too short to see anything much else of him, other than he's quite a big chap. I was quite impressed with that. And then, of course, Jordan Ponticelli came on, who, blows hard and has got that big Easter Island face and everything else, but that he's not... I hope he's a fabulous success. I hope that it wasn't too rude, but that he's like League 2 Harry Kane, isn't he? He's kind of... He doesn't seem to have anything particularly characteristic about him, but he looks interesting enough. I just don't think he's probably quite there yet. But there's not an obvious option on the bench screaming out that says, well, if we are going to make those sort of strategic changes that make us a more attacking outfit, I don't quite see where they are. Paul, do you...
Well, I mean, it's a case of trusting people like Ben Stevenson in the midfield, isn't it? And it's also
I just don't think he'd have created any more on Saturday. I just don't think Stevenson would have made the difference. I love Ben Stevenson. You know I love Ben Stevenson. I don't think he'd have given us any more of a cutting edge on Saturday than Kelly and Doyle did.
Well, that's fair enough. We are where we are. Let's just hear. I mean, I just think this whole thing about we can't possibly lose our defensive solidity, it just is a case of that'd be fine if every team in the top 7 had conceded the same amount of goals as us. It's like they haven't. There is a reason we've scored the fewest in the top half of the table, and that can't all be bound down to the fact our strikers aren't as good as other teams. Whether or not other teams have goals from 5 or 6 positions, and we're trying to get all of our goals out of 4, I couldn't tell you. It's just that there is that discrepancy there that we score fewer than everyone else in the top half.
Agreed.
And it's how we then... Yeah, I mean, he's been unlucky with the injury to Tony. He's been, and
McNulty.
And McNulty injury probably was a benefit that let the duck in the first place. Whether or not it's time to bring Kwame in and give him a chance, I don't know. He's a bit clutching at straws, but we knew that Biamu was always a bit of a risk from a goal scoring point of view, but I think he does add to the team. But you're sort of talking about another player. It's like you said yourself. It's like you might get 5 to 10. There isn't goals throughout the team. There aren't 6 or 7 goal scoring options. And like going into the next 3 games, we've discussed this before the pod. It's like the Duck comes back from Japan for the game on Saturday. We're playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. It's a lot to ask him to play those 3 games after having the time away he's had. So McNulty's going to have to either start or play substantial periods of all or part of the 3 games. Does he just need a goal? But he scored against Warsaw. Okay, it was a penalty, but you're hoping that old bumbled in off his arse type thing. He has, he scored a couple of penalties this season. That doesn't seem to have been able to help him in the league. So, maybe Haynes coming back, just giving us, because he's someone who can score goals, another person who can get in and around the box. Maybe that would help. I mean, the problem is, anything I say just sounds really churlish. But Barnet have only scored 6 goals this season at home. They're not a team who is scoring bucket loads. And we're not playing against teams who score. It's like if we keep a clean sheet against Forest Green, I'm not going to be, that's brilliant. It's like we should keep a clean sheet against Forest Green. They're shit. And that's my concern. It's just like, it's not, I'm really proud of the defence for the defence, that the clean sheets they're keeping, but we've kept clean sheets against teams like Chesterfield, who are fucking shit. So it's like, that shouldn't be something to be proud of. That should be the minimum requirement, is keeping a clean sheet against Barnet. The difficult thing is then beating Barnet. So keeping clean sheets is great. I'm never going to take that away. But if we keep a clean sheet against Forest Green and draw 0-0, you won't hear me celebrating the clean sheet. That's the point I'm at.
Let me put this to you, and then we'll move on, because we could talk about this all night. And we've got only Covvect to get to. And you know how the fans get angry if we don't do only Covvect. All I would say in counter sort of devil's advocate is there is more than one way to skin a cat, and I think we have got to be careful about being guilty of reframing the argument depending on what the circumstances are at the moment. And I wonder whether we are being a bit reactionary by we, I mean you specifically, Paul. If we are being a bit reactionary we go 12 games where we've had to upset the front 4 an awful lot, and that we go, well, we need to change things immediately, and we need to do something, and let's put Ryan Haynes in defence and everything. I wonder whether actually you'd be better off getting a absolutely settled first 11, including a front 4 of whoever it is, when Nazon's back, if it's Nazon, McNulty, Devon, Kelly, Evans and Jones, and actually letting them click together, and that maybe when we're talking about confidence and all of them kind of subjective ideas. Maybe actually it's just a case of a unit forming together, in the same way that you could argue that those defensive players now knowing exactly where the other one is likely to be, and in reasonable numbers because they've played so many games together now, maybe you just need the attack to form a unit like that, and that doesn't happen overnight, and maybe we just need to be a bit patient. As with all of these things, I reckon you will turn out to be right on this, and I'll have egg on my face, but I would be keen just for us to keep our powder dry just for a little bit longer, and just maybe not make seismic changes, but look to settle on a front four that is a unit. Then if that doesn't fire after 5 games, then maybe you'd look to turn it around again. But we are not in a position where we need to be worried too much. We're in a very comfortable position, and I've got a defensive record that is presumably the best in the country. I mean, I'd be very surprised if there's anybody who's conceded less goals than us so far.
Mate, I understand all that, and it is just a case of it's interesting, isn't it? We discussed this at the start of the season. Where as you say, there are many ways to skin a cat, and as I said to you before, I find really interesting the people who are on. There were lots of people who saw probably for the first time this season, due to whatever circumstances, their performance against Barnet, and said that we were incredibly dull. And it's like, you don't keep 8 clean sheets in 12 games if you're playing really, really good attacking, interesting football. It's just, it doesn't happen. So you've got to come to that sort of acceptance of how we're trying to do things. And me and Ian Herron had a discussion earlier, and it is a case of, I accept the fact that we're doing it this way, which is fine, and that means that there's probably going to be at least 30-40 minutes of every game which is quite dull. If we get promoted, who cares? There is definitely that argument, and as I said, it's part of it is I'll always be I probably won't always be looking for ways I think we could be better or more interesting to watch. If we go through this season and we keep 30 clean sheets and we win promotion, it's a null and void conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The question of whether or not that front four can combine and start developing is a valid one. I think my issue still would be the fact that we seem to rely on 4 players basically to win us games, and that unless those 4 players are absolutely brilliant, it will always concern me, especially when 2 of the players we're looking, well, if you like, Dion Kevin-Anderson's only played 3 or 4, maybe 5 games. Biamu's never played league football for this season. We know that there's going to be a spell in the second half of the season when Biamu's breathing out of his arse. Again, with Nays on, we just don't know what's going to happen with him in January. So there's question marks over that front four, but they could completely click. They could be absolutely brilliant. We've seen spells where they've tore teams apart. It's not like there's major issues with the football club or the team. That there aren't. It's just, it's a square that you have to circle in your own head. Are you happy to watch us win 1-0, or there'll be the more than occasional 0-0s thrown in for us to achieve our ends? Sometimes I think it's a lot easier this season to be a Cov fan who watches the highlights than go and watches us for 90 minutes. Because I haven't seen a 90 minutes yet where we've been really good for 90 minutes. But that hopefully will come, and that might never come in my entire time of watching Cov. But I just think, as I said to Ian, I don't think you have to accept, if we're going to play the way we are, some people will call that boring. And it's not a criticism, it's not a moan, it's just a statement of what they've watched, is at times we are dull to watch.
At times.
We're always dull
times
to watch, yeah, this season.
Yeah.
And at times we blitz teams.
Yeah. But and as I said, I just think those, if you watch us on highlights, you can make a highlights of most games where we look really, really good. So let's just see. I mean, the next week is really, as I said, is really interesting. Accrington away is a massive game because they're above us and they're in form. And then we play 2 teams at home where you're expecting 6 points. You're expecting to beat Forest Green and you're expecting to beat Colchester.
Neil, give us your thoughts and then we'll move on.
I just feel it's a little bit disproportionate, really. I just think that one game, yes, it was boring, and maybe because we built it up because it was on telly and it was the first time lots of people were going to see it. You kind of want something a little bit special to kind of validate everything that we've been saying beforehand, and it didn't occur, and it was a bit disappointing. But I just feel like the week beforehand, we weren't talking like this. We were talking about how wasteful we've been in front of goals, how many opportunities we created, and I just feel like there's no need to panic. Almost every facet of the team is working how it should be, except the fact that we're not putting away the chances. And then against Barnet, we didn't create as many chances as we have been. So that's a disappointment, but it's not indicative of everything that's going on this season, I don't think. I think there's more than enough games to show that we do create a hell of a lot of chances. And you've got wingers like Jody Jones playing well. You've got that back seven, as we're talking about. I think they're all playing well. You've got a striker like Nazan. When he comes back, he's playing well. We had Kelly Evans, who came into the team, and suddenly he looked good and maybe had a poor game, but there's still enough to show that he's a good player. So I just think there's far more going right for the team at the moment than there is to concern ourselves with. And we can concern ourselves and maybe try and improve it, but not in a sort of an outrageous way. Try and go too far about it. Try and really sort of push the boat out and do something reckless when actually there's so much going well for us at the moment.
Okay, cool. Right, let's speak to Dominic, and then we will let's get this foreplay out of the way and get onto the main sex course.
Yeah.
Dominic Accrington, I don't know why I'm saying that like he's here. I'm going to buzz in a previously recorded phone call. Here's one we created earlier. Hello, Dominic. Thanks for joining us.
Hi
there. Full disclosure for those listening, we got to meet at last on Saturday after Barnet.
Yeah, it was a fun time had.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure. Taking in the hip sort of archway establishments of Bermondsey as we did after the game. Not so fun missing the last train home to Manchester, but I'm sure that people don't need to hear me whinge about that for now, especially when we've got a lot to talk about with Accrington on Saturday, a sentence that I hoped I'd never have to say. They are only 2 goal difference behind us, aren't they? They're on the same number of points. Were you anticipating this at the start of the season? Were they one that you were expecting to do well? Would you expect them to be up there at the end of the season?
Well, despite being sort of famous for being a tiny club, probably too small to be in the Football League, ever since their manager John Coleman has returned to the club a few seasons ago, they've been genuinely one of the best teams at this level. The only thing that's really held them back has been just not being rich, basically. They went into this new season losing a few key players. Matty Pearson, who's gone to Barnsley, and Omar Beckles, who's gone to Shrewsbury. So Shane McCartan, who was in excellent form for them, he's gone to Bradford. So it's just one of those things, like, yes, they were weaker, but they're just such a well-managed club that you kind of just expect them to absorb that at this stage now.
It was interesting seeing their chairman recently post a lot of the financial details of what it takes to run that club and to operate in League Two. Did you see any of that?
I didn't come across that, but I do know he tends to be quite active on Twitter. I think he got into a bit of a spat with the Premier League over the summer around something, I think like Czech Trade Trophy or something.
Yeah, I think that was linked to that whole situation, but we'll dig that out and try and retweet that at some point so that people can have a look at that. But very interesting stuff. You mentioned the players that they've lost over the summer. Who are they likely to have that could cause us a threat?
So sort of typically under John Coleman, the manager, they sort of have a core of about 3 or 4 experienced players, and then around it is quite a few sort of young, inexperienced players, sort of a few punts on loans and free transfers. But because they're just so well drilled and they know what they're trying to achieve, then it always seems to come together. So that sort of core of the side is sort of Mark Hughes in central defence, who's getting on just past 30 now. He's a really experienced sort of League Two centre back. They've got Seamus Kennedy in sort of defence and midfield, who just spoils the game in front of the defence. And then you've got Billy Key in attack, who's their focal point, sort of both creating and scoring chances. Then Sean McConville out wide, who's on set pieces. So and then sort of coming into the mix this season has been Caden Jackson, who signed from Barnsley. His big break in football came from winning a competition with Samsung, which got him a professional contract with Swindon, and sort of a few years after that he earned a move to Barnsley after spelling non-league, and he started the season in great form. He scored 6 goals already, and him and Billy Key have got 13 between them. So that combination of Key sort of being the focal point in the attack and Jackson running in behind has been lethal for them so far this season. We've also got a player called Jordan Clark, but it's not the Jordan Clark we recognise. He's sort of an energetic and creative midfield player, plays just off the wing. We've got Liam Nolan, who they signed over the summer from Southport, who's chipped in with a few assists. He's sort of a big defensive midfielder. And they also have a familiar name from last season, Farron Warson, who, I mean, he didn't have a brilliant time with us, but I thought it was weird he ended up at Accrington, because he looked quite a decent League One defender, and he's had good experience in the past in the Championship. And to be in League Two at Accrington just seems a bit weird for me.
Good stuff. What do they play? What's their style of play like?
Well, I think sort of the expectation with sort of a club with Accrington's resources that they're either sort of really long ball or really defensive, and they're not really that. Like, just based on if you look at sort of expected goal stats, which comes from like Experimental 361, over the past couple of seasons, they've created a lot of chances and tended to dominate games. And they can really pin teams back, playing some decent stuff. That being said, they do have that. They do have a bit of edge to their game. They know how to sort of make niggly fouls, make their presence known. Keneally in defensive midfield is quite good at sort of just spoiling the game a little bit. And then, as I mentioned before, up front, really watch out for that combination with Key, who can really sort of just thread players in behind, and then Jackson running in behind. So they can dominate us. They can play on the counter a bit. They can spoil it. So it's going to be quite a test for us.
And then the crucial question, prediction?
This is probably our toughest away game, certainly, this season. And sort of, I think it's going to sort of challenge maybe a few of the preconceptions we have about this team, whether we've actually defended well or whether we've just played bad teams thus far. I'm really hoping we do avoid defeat here, if only just to avoid just the optics of saying we've lost Accrington Stanley, what a day in this club's history. So I'm going to go for a draw.
Okay, thank you very much. Speak to you next week. Thanks, Dominic. Remember, if you want to get to his blog, he does fantastic previews of the upcoming games in written format. It's sidewayssammy.wordpress.com. Paul, take it away.
All right. I've only got 2 questions because, life's too short. The first question is what links...
Although this podcast is not, by the looks of it.
Yeah, we were trying to aim for half an hour. But, yeah. Anyway, the first question is what links these 4 sports people? Okay? And you can both have a guess after each clue.
Okay.
But you don't have to guess who's 4th. You just guess what you think links these 4 people. Okay? Australian field hockey player Shelley Lidlow.
Who?
Did he or she play for Cov?
No.
No, okay.
But it is a she.
Related to John Aloisi?
No.
All of them, all 4 of them.
All 4 of them. Right. I thought I'd throw that one in just because I thought that would make it slightly more difficult. The second one is Lee Griffith. I think he plays for Celtic at the moment.
He does, yeah. I was about to say something libelous there. Neil, have you got one?
No, I don't. I don't have anything yet.
The next one, Mark Hughes.
Lee Griffiths, Mark Hughes, Shelley. What was Lidlow? Lidlow. Oh my life. No.
Neil.
Last one.
Mark McNulty.
Oh my word. Lee Griffiths, McNulty. No, I have not a clue.
Is it wordplay or is it actual real life?
It's it's nicknames. or nickname.
Sparky.
Oh,
Yes.
Ribbons. Yeah, oh, man, we should.
How have we missed that, Joey? We're not good at this game.
No, we're
This is
not
why
good at
people
this
don't
game.
like it.
I didn't realise that Lee Griffiths was Sparky.
Say again?
I didn't realise that Lee Griffiths was Sparky.
Neither did I, but some of the other sort of really obscure American footballers. I thought you might moan if I gave you one of those. That's why I threw in Shelley Liddell at the start. 'Cause I thought, and if you got that on Clue 1, then you're truly genius.
Why? What is Sparky? What's that all about?
I think with Lee Griffiths, it's the fact he's not that bright.
Right. Okay.
Oh, right.
I'm not sure. Sparky is an electrician in the normal world. I don't know if it's for Mark. Not. I don't know if it's just because he's a bit.
Are you sure it's not because
character?
It rhymes? Are we not over there? Mark.
Spark.
Mark.
Lee
Is that not
Spark?
that one? Yeah, potentially doesn't fit the criteria, but. I just realised as I'm saying Mark, my Warwick accent is showing up a lot. Mark.
All right. Question number 2. You have to tell me what comes fourth in this sequence. All right. Mark Hughes, 38 years.
Is this amount of time that they've been called Sparky? Is it Mark McNulty, 26 years? Yeah.
No. Clue number 2 is Stuart Pearce, 38 years.
The number of years since they've been an electrician, wasn't he actually? No.
Sorry, can you say the first 2 again, please?
So Mark Hughes, 38 years. Stuart Pearce, 38 years.
What's 38 years? That's 1979-ish.
Is that?
Okay.
Have you just done that off the top of your head? That's great maths there.
Threw it in there,
It
but I
feels
think
like
I might be a year out.
I feel like that's going to be wrong. No, that is going to be right, isn't it? Good work.
That is, yeah. Ryan Giggs, 39 years.
Oh, they played their last game in the Premiership.
No. So who would come fourth after Mark
right.
Hughes, Stuart Pearce, and Ryan Giggs?
David James, 59 years.
Is it Gordon Strachan, 41 years?
Ooh.
Close.
Oh,
It's Teddy Sheringham, 40 years.
Oh, is it oldest goal scorer in the Premier
goal
League?
scorer.
Oldest goal scorers.
For Portsmouth?
No, just in the
West Ham.
Premier League.
No.
West Ham.
Oh, scored a goal. Yeah, I think it was West Ham, wasn't it?
For Sheringham?
Yeah, it was 40 years and 268 days. I thought the days might be a bit too difficult for you to get.
Yeah, probably.
I am
yeah.
tenuously related to Teddy Sheringham.
Are you really?
He is my uncle's cousin. I don't know what that makes him to me, but I've never met the man.
Oh. Any chance he could invite you out to India?
Well, maybe. Me and Connor. That would be a great playing
You,
trip.
Connor, and Carl.
Carl, they'd love me, wouldn't he, in the middle? Talking about helmets and saying his name over and over.
Yeah. I'd pay to watch that.
So that was the glorious return of only Covvect.
Do you know what? They were actual ones.
They were.
If you'd have done that before, people might not have hated. 38% of people might not have hated it so much. Yeah. Okay. That was good. I don't think we're going to bother with any listener questions, are we? No, let's not.
Nah.
Neil, what's going on Sky Blues blog?
I feel bad for saying it, but the usual, if that is such a thing. Just we'll be looking at this week's games and stuff.
I'm just checking to see. I think Laurie did a post Barnet thing at the Lonely Season.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back with a bang. So that's thelonelyseason.club for frequent Lamptey Show contributor Laurie Kilpatrick. His verbose review of the game. If that's not pot kettle black for a podcast that's taken 54 minutes now to say very little indeed. And Paul, do you know what CCFC breaks down as? How that is Charlie Harris's stats blog?
I'll retweet it. Or you can retweet it. It's CEECSEE. I can't. Yeah, Charlie, just pick.
Change your name.
Change it, Charlie.
Yeah.
SEASEEEFFCEE.
But But like every football fan of a certain era, I'm really looking forward to Accrington Stanley because of the whole milk advert from the 80s. So
curious.
Who are they?
We'll find out who they are.
I've been
And
there to
hopefully
watch Cov.
they're shit. Have you?
Yeah, I have.
League Cup or something?
In pre-season. John,
right.
We won 4-1. John Fleck scored from the halfway line. And trialist Bruno Casarin for trialist fans.
Oh, yeah.
Played the game. And I think scored the other two. And I saw Kevin Kilban in the clubhouse after the game. But unlike Jody Jones, didn't call him a fucking legend.
That is... Yeah, that's an opportunity missed.
Yeah, quite.
Must haunt you to this day.
That was quite a day, in fact. But the lurid details of what happened after that, maybe for another time, possibly not for this podcast.
If you ever see Joey in the street, ask him what happened.
Yeah, it was quite an eventful evening in the end. But anyway, I'll leave you on that tantalising morsel. Thank you very much, Paul.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with us. Bye.